Welcome to the Critical Break Podcast, Episode 3, where we talk about video games like gentlemen, people who know things. I'm the host, it's me, Bobby Toasters. And here we got the homeboy, Leon is not Crash.
Hey, do people usually immediately join you on the intro? That's why you fucking.
No, not always. I don't think Lee or Danny did.
Hmm.
Why?
Yeah, because you were all fucking weird at the beginning.
Nah, that's just
You
me.
just stumbled a little bit.
Well, would it be a podcast by me if I didn't stumble a little bit?
That is true.
I'm just stating facts. But here we are today, talking about yet another Capcom game. I know I said I'd be doing Soul Hackers for the third video, but I also underestimated how many notes I had to take for that game. So more time is going to be needed.
It is a JRPG.
It is. It is. And I'm not sure if I want to go to Soul Hackers or Trails next, so I'm just gonna say expect things to happen, but I don't know. We'll find
Just
out.
know that there will be episodes of games.
There will be episode of Critical Break, and it'll happen. Yay! But today we're actually talking about a game, yet another Capcom game that dropped around this like a month before Devil May Cry 5, which was the last game I talked about with Danny, and that is Resident
Capcom was
Evil
coming for the gold last year. This year?
this year.
This year.
That's what's
Yeah.
crazy, yeah. But exactly, like this is Resident Evil 2. The 2019 remake of the classic Resident Evil 2. Or I mean, one could argue reimagining of the classic.
What a strange I thought this would be an alternate future, but this is like a real timeline now for me. For kid me, who's like, well, I'm old. I'm an older person now. I'm a nebulously aged older person now, and Resident Evil 2 remake came out, and Street Rage 4 is coming out.
Oh man, yeah, like the same year. How wild is that? That is so crazy. This year is kind of turning out to be like, what was it like? When did Nier Automata come out? I think like 2017, because that was just a killer year for gaming too. But I guess on the topic of Resident Evil, I think we'll start off like how I love starting off my podcast and going into a little bit of the development history of Resident Evil 2 Remake. I guess for those who don't know, Resident Evil 2, the original, dropped on PlayStation in 1998, saw like massive
Great year.
success. Yeah, that was a great year. Like honestly, like 96 to 98, pinnacle year for Sony. So many good
Freaking
games.
Metal Gear Solid came out that same year.
Yeah, and I think Symphony of the Night. I think, don't know. And but I guess going into it though, uh, following that release, they eventually remade the first Resident Evil back in 2002. Also to critical acclaim, or at least maybe not like a big splash hit like Resident Evil 2, but people look back on it fondly as like a quintessential remake of an
It
old
was a good
classic.
game, but I think at the time it was considered a failure because it didn't sell as much
Yeah,
as. Did 4 come before or after it?
4
Before?
came after it actually, like 2 years later. I think it was a weird thing
Oh yeah, yeah,
because
yeah, yeah. That's right. Because remakes failure is one of the reasons what made them go in that direction in the first place.
if I'm not mistaken, I think Remake came out I think it came out on like GameCube uh
Yep, exclusively for
exclusively
the
for a little
time.
bit. Yeah, so I think that's probably like what kind of attributed to its failure because the GameCube like sales wise did poor compared to the PS2 and the Xbox, which is crazy to
Hmm.
think about with how many people play Melee. But like facts are facts, and it apparently
I think
Cap.
GameCube had eh, I don't know if it was a failure, but I
I don't
feel like
think
it
it
had
was a
comfortable enough
failure.
sales. It played the same it played the same lane that Nintendo usually plays. Is like this is the kid friendly console. You can do it. But then they started releasing Bayonetta and Resident Evil. It was like, oh,
Funny enough, from the jump, actually, Nintendo was kind of like, no, 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 we got to get those hardcore players in. That's why they swiped up stuff like Resident Evil. They got like, fuck, what was that like one horror game, the psychological one,
I know what you're talking
the one
about.
made by the shitty company that did Too Human.
The Cthulhu one.
Yeah, I'm sure someone will
It's
comment.
like Eternal Darkness. That's what it's
Eternal
called.
Darkness, right? They wanted those like that suite of hardcore stuff. I mean, hell, look at Metroid Prime. You know, like look there no further than that. I think GameCube had a much better ratio of like games for everyone than like the Wii, which kind of was more when they started more aiming at kids. But
Yeah, but
nonetheless,
nobody told the designers of the console.
yeah,
But
no
at
one
least the
told them
console was
that.
designed in a way so that it would last forever, like all old Nintendo products.
Yeah. Well, debatably because I hear stories about controller degradation and all that. But
Well, looking, yeah,
regardless,
we're gonna be out of GameCube controllers at some point.
yeah. Back to this whole, I guess, game history, though. Apparently, Capcom considered remaking RE2 as soon as right after they dropped the remake of Resident Evil 1. Creator Shinji Mikami, however, did not want to divert development away from Resident Evil 4, which, I mean, what a mistake that would be if as I mean RE4 probably the most successful game in the series. Well, at that point, that's what kind of put Resident Evil on the map in the eye of the mainstream.
And that's how you can tell they were resting on their laurels and thinking that shit was sweet for putting it on the GameCube. For like I don't know why they expected it to sell well on the GameCube.
I mean, apparently, despite that, Resident Evil 4 did really well. Like, I mean, in no like even with it
We're
just
talking about
being
remake again.
oh right, yeah, and I guess because RE4 was like a really like it was a revolution because it was like a third person shooter, which you really didn't see a whole lot of at the time, and it was a different take on the series, much more action focused, less horror injected, and I always find
Was that another time exclusive, or did that come out the same time on PlayStation 2?
um that was another temporary exclusive. I think it came out on PS2 and Xbox. Like, oh, I don't even know about Xbox actually, but I do know it came out on PS2 like a year later. But apparently, that port is notorious for being awful.
I heard, and that's one of the reasons that kept me from playing it for so long.
I hear the best version of RE4 to play is like I think the HD versions and the Wii version.
Hmm.
But apparently, yeah, like for a while, like Capcom kind of made games similar to Resident Evil 4 to for the chagrin of the fans, and that's something I'll never ever understand because people are like, oh, like we hate RE5 and we hate RE6 because it's not Resident Evil, it's not Resident Evil 4 or like Resident Evil 2, and I'm like, have you played those games? Especially RE4. Like RE4 is not like 100% a horror game. It is like such a far cry.
It's an action movie.
Yeah, it is such a far cry from Resident Evil 1 through 3, yet people loved it with open arms. But then they see RE5, and I'm sure the controversy with that game didn't help. The stupid controversy.
And you can tell Resident Evil 4, like if you ever played Devil May Cry and also you play Resident Evil 4, you can tell that those games used to be one and the same because Leon is Dante cocky in that game.
He is. He's basically a different character.
Mm-hmm.
And then Resident Evil 6 is like balls to the wall, insane action game with incredible set pieces, and everyone hated it for some reason.
5 was dumb, but I liked it.
Yeah, I mean they were both dumb. 5 and 6 were dumb. 4 was dumb, but they're all
6 was extra dumb. 6 was a fanfic.
I mean, I loved it. Don't get me wrong. Like I was one of the few people who were like, "Yo, Resi 6, good ass game."
I bet it plays sick and great, and like
It's
you
just-
can do mercenaries mode all day, but I have not, as of yet, gotten past the tutorial.
Fair enough. I just think you have to approach it with the mindset that it's like it's the last of the trilogy of the character action Resident Evil action shoot bang.
It's
Because
like, I might eventually, but that would require me to buy it again because I'm not in a hurry to plug up my PlayStation 3 again. Also, I don't even have it on.
I gotta do a podcast on that. I should probably do a podcast on a lot of the Resident Evils, but yeah, Resident Evil 7 came out, was seen as mostly a return to form. Um, Goes back to like honestly more horror focused than even the older games. That game is creepy as shit.
Did I buy it recently?
RE7?
I think I might have.
I thought you playing it.
No. Uh,
Hmm.
oh, I did buy it. Yep. So I'm gonna play it eventually.
Yeah, and you can definitely tell like a lot of the design philosophy behind RE7 really influenced the remake of 2 because back in like 2015, I think even before RE7 came out, they confirmed that yeah, they're remaking Resident Evil 2. Fan
Mhm.
favorite video game.
We do it.
We doing it, and we wouldn't hear any news about the game till E3 2018, where Capcom revealed the trailer and gameplay footage. And fun fact, apparently throughout this whole process, all these years, even when after he left Capcom, Hideki Kamiya has been really pushing Capcom to remake the game, like really
He's
pushing
like, y'all, he's like, do you not want money? You want?
it. Because I think he had a hand in the creation of Resident Evil 2. I'm pretty sure anyway.
Hmm.
To meet the modern apparent fun fact, also crazy fun fact. Yoshi, I'm probably gonna butcher this name. Yoshi Yaki Hirabayashi, producer of Resident Evil 6, helped produce this game. And he took feedback from 6 to see what the hardcore Resident Evil fans really wanted. And so to meet modern expectations, he and his team attempted to make the remake realistic. For example, Leon no longer has large pauldrons uh, on his shoulders. They wanted to make his like RPD uniform a little more like realistic. They wanted to use the excellent RE engine to facial motion capture all the characters.
Hmm.
Like
Yep.
most of the characters
As
in the
you can
game,
tell, if you especially if you have the PC version, you bump up those graphics, it looks crazy.
it looks uncanny valley. I mean, in a good
Hmm.
way. It's just wild. It had like insane lighting. And apparently, yeah, producer Tsuyoshi Kanda really acknowledged the difficulty of making zombies seem scary and threatening. So, I mean, that's what their kind of like objective number one was, to make the normal zombie an actual threat, which we'll get into when we talk about the gameplay. But I think for the most part, like as a teaser, I think they did a pretty good job with that.
Because the
Um,
original Resident Evil is basically like moving puzzle pieces around,
they also
just
had, yeah,
moving around chess pieces. It's like, all right, I know the zombie's gonna be right there. I could just run right behind him over here.
and that's what,
Fake, just you gotta put your Eye Shield 21 glasses on. Oh, that's what you gotta do now.
yeah.
In the new one, you gotta put your Eye Shield 21 like route finder mind on and just be like, all right, I got the zigzag. I gotta do it right now.
And that's another
Don't run
thing.
always. These lickers will murder you.
And that's another thing. By removing the fixed camera angles, the team had to use a different like method of concealing enemies, using elements such as room layout, lighting, and smoke. The new camera system also affected the sound design, since the game uses I think like 3D sound, or like what's the term for it? The
It's like spiral sound or something.
like dynamic sound, like like you'll hear if something is coming from the left, your speakers, like your headset, will adjust to hearing it. Like just it's very dynamic. They wanted the game to be incredibly immersive, and yeah,
It's like
you know,
spiral sound or some shit like that.
the game dropped January 20. Actually, the game dropped a one-shot demo after the Game Awards, I think, which received 4 million downloads worldwide, which is wild.
I downloaded it but never played it.
And I mean, I know people played it multiple times, but yeah, and then it dropped not too long after that, January 25th, 2019, and to massive acclaim. Metacritic got an aggregate for it at like between 89 and 93 across all the three consoles it dropped on. And the game sold over 2 million units, I believe, if not more. It's basically one of the best-selling Capcom games right now, maybe even one of the best-selling games in the whole series. And to
Mm-hmm.
think that they would drop Devil May Cry 5 a month later, which saw similar success and was on the same engine.
Because
Like,
they were hedging their bets, and somebody was thinking more than not at all. They were like, "All right, we got Resident Evil, but there are some people who aren't going to be playing Resident Evil, so we'll drop Devil May Cry for them."
I think the only thing that beat Resident Evil around the time that it came out was Kingdom Hearts 3, which, I mean, not really a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
It's Kingdom Hearts.
That's a whole other podcast right there.
Oh my god. I don't know if I ever want to do that, but anyway,
Yeah.
maybe someday. But back to the game, yeah, like so that's where we're at now. They dropped some DLC that after the fact. I didn't play them. I hear they're good. They're just small scenarios that you play as like some of the other characters you meet throughout the game, and they have like
What is it,
unique
what is it
elements.
about? The
Survivors DLC, which is free.
Yeah, the Ghost Survivors.
Ghost Survivors, right? Yeah. Again, I didn't play it,
I
so
only played the Shotgun Dad. I only played
Kendo.
Kendo's,
Yeah, the other two characters seemed a little weird. I was
but
like,
boy, Kendo's. I think I poisoned it for me. I got to go back and try to play it slowly because I keep finding routes and shit, and I'm like, I'm not good enough to do this route, but I got to keep trying.
but yeah, I think this is actually a perfect time to get into the gameplay now that we're all caught up with the history.
Hmm.
And we'll get into story spoilers soon after, because if you've played Resident Evil 4 and basically any game that's come after that, the game is very similar, but I would still argue it's very different.
It is.
It has a
So
lot
there's
of this.
people actually like being afraid instead of being like another monster.
This is what happens when you take that like camera perspective and actually develop it around horror rather than
Hmm.
action set pieces. And I mean that don't get me wrong, there are action set pieces in this game, particularly in the latter portion, but it's at least poignant there.
And stuff that was obviously kept from four,
Exactly. They did
like
take
those
out.
raccoon statues,
Wait, what was that?
like those raccoon statues.
Ah, yes, the raccoon statues. Um, but the main thing, let's talk about like what they got rid of in regards to Resident Evil 4. So in RE4, you could stagger zombies or just like mutants, and then give them a roundhouse kick to the face, like a big
Hmm.
old cool anime melee attack, and that's something a lot of the games kind of got known for. They got rid of that in this game in lieu of item-based counters, which is actually a returning mechanic from RE1 Remake,
Hmm.
where if a zombie's like biting you, if as long as you have like a knife or a grenade, you can shove it in the zombie's face or mouth for what like just to get them off you and you don't take damage. But you know, then that's just
Get off
base.
you, and depending on where they're standing, it could be like a room reset
Yeah, it really
because
could.
the other zombies around them get too close.
Hmm. It's especially effective when it's a grenade. But that also gets into that smoothly transitions into another big thing that I think this game does way more than harshly than any of the other over-the-shoulder Resident Evil games, and that is resource management and being very careful with your ammunition. That is something from the old games, even. Like
That's one, two, three right there.
that is super duper in the spirit of two. Um, you know, like you'll seldom find ammo, and you'll find ammo often enough, but enemies don't
But they
drop
definitely
ammo.
they toned it down for this one.
They did because there are little things here and there. Like for example, actually no, we'll get about that when we actually talk to spoilers because people probably don't want to hear about some boss exploit regarding ammunition. We'll get into that, but yeah, it's definitely like a little bit more lenient than the old games, but it's still like scarce enough where if you foolishly waste too much ammo, you will not be ready for a lot of encounters.
They did really good with the undulating difficulty system that they created, or I don't know. It feels like they took it from no, they took that from 4. The changing difficulty system as well.
Mm.
Where
Actually,
if you're doing bad, then the game will ease up on you, but if you're doing good, then the AI will become more aggressive and do more damage and
I
such.
feel like even when I was doing bad, the game would hate me. At least on my first playthrough. Um, Again, these will be experiences as we talk about spoilers, but just gameplay in general. It feels like a very toned back Resident Evil 4, 5, or 6. You don't have that many evasive. You don't have any evasive maneuvers. The best that you have is again that melee counter. You have like a quick turn, but other than that, oh, and sometimes like zombies can just like vaguely like they'll just barely touch you, and then your character will auto duck under them or just shake them off immediately. But that's not something you can rely on all the time, and might even be detrimental to you because if you do that in the wrong position, another zombie can just chomp on your neck.
Yeah, you can't rely on it all the time because of the undulating difficulty system. If you've been doing too good, you are not pushing off or juking any zombies. They're going to grab you,
Yeah,
and especially in hardcore mode, you can't do it at all. So
yeah. I'm sure you'll have stories for hardcore mode because I only played basic bitch normal mode.
I only know what I heard. I didn't play hardcore yet either.
Oh, okay, cool, cool. So we both have similar points of reference, but regardless, yeah. And also regarding gameplay, uh, it does feel very much like old Resident Evil. You know, you're running around one big map. You're locating keys and puzzles and doodads to move around. I will say I think the puzzle aspect of the game is toned down from the original RE2. Like it's still definitely there, you can tell, but nothing like block pushy, or at least like there's only like really like one block pushing puzzle I can recall, and it's not much of a puzzle. It's more like, oh, you get the item and you put the item in the thing and then you can move the thing,
Hmm.
but it's mostly just get an item and put it
Yeah,
in the
there's no
spot.
like water level changing to push the blocks over the thing.
Nope. It's pretty in that
No
that's not.
silly ass. Well, there's a whole bunch of the keys are still there, but there's no like gems to and statue pushing.
Yeah, there is one gem, but it's used to unlock an optional item. And yeah, that's another thing. The game has
That
like,
was just a callback to 2, if anything.
and then you can find like film around the station to give you hints on certain puzzles. You definitely don't need them. If anything, I usually scrap them when I get them because I'm kind of just like, okay, I know where things are.
They're like, yeah, you don't like after the first or second playthrough, you don't need them anymore,
And one thing that they
which is
did,
good for speedrunning.
and they, I
And
think,
something that they kept too, because once you know the combinations to the safes in the original 2, just like in this one, never change. So
yeah, and I guess this wouldn't be much of a spoiler because it's just
I
regarding
think the
the,
original one in the police in the office is 2236,
yeah,
if I remember correctly.
I think so, maybe, but regarding like the overall design of the game, yeah, they tried to keep it as like they try to keep it as close to the original, but at the same time, they I think more than RE1 remake, they really like changed a lot more to the point where some people like it's kind of a contentious subject where people think that it's like maybe not like as a remake completely faithful, but people look at it as like an honorable reimagining of RE2 where enough.
It's like not. I feel like it's not really a reimagining. It's more like they're doing what they wanted to. Well, what they would have and more if they had the technology at the time. It's more of a staying true to the feeling of the game than the actual mechanics of the old one.
Right, and I think you know, like all the new things are really cool, but if I could
I'll double back on later when we start talking about bosses and shit.
I think one thing that I will say for certain is that I think I always liked how the pre-rendered backgrounds looked a bit better in the original game. Not saying I don't love how the environments look in the new one. They look fantastic, but it is kind of
Mhm.
samey to just walk through like very just completely pitch black environments with a flashlight compared to how
Mhm.
visually diverse everything was in the original. Like that diversity is still kind of there. It's just shrouded in darkness,
Dark.
kind of
Yeah.
like Doom 3, which I mean, I hated a lot more in Doom 3 because everything literally looked the same in Doom 3. At least
Mhm.
there's like moments where, the game's like art design really shines, but
Well, like a lot of the old layout from the original too is still there.
yeah.
Like,
And they
but
added
they moved some stuff around a little bit, but
a third floor to the RCPD. They added a couple whole new segments. They cut down certain
well, they added
segments.
more to the. Was that the second floor? Was the
They
bell
added
tower just a second, just another part of the second floor? Because I'm pretty sure
no,
there
it's a
was like a third floor, but the only thing that was up there was the bell tower.
yeah. I think that was just the bell tower because like everyone always says like because again I have very limited. I've played through Resident Evil 2 once and I watched you play it for when we did it for Team Not Crash. So
Mhm.
my you've played it many more times than me. So my reference pool's limited. But I do remember that yeah, the only thing that was like kind of a third floor was the bell tower. But otherwise,
Yeah,
like
they extended the third floor to like two more rooms, three
it,
more rooms, two more
quite a
rooms.
few, like a couple hallways, couple rooms. It was pretty big. You
And they interconnected the police station differently, a bit better than the original.
yeah,
But this is all stuff that they did to enhance it for its newness.
yeah, and I think one thing,
Also the darkness, because like the handicap in the original one was the tank controls, but now they had to do something differently. So
hmm
make it dark.
and I think one thing that's important to note is that I mentioned before that they wanted to make zombies scary again, which I mean,
Mhm.
I think they did a really good job with that.
Which is
Um,
a part of the two-pronged thing they did. Make it dark and make the zombies an actual threat.
because
So that you can't just run around them with your new better movie controls.
like not I'm not saying that like most of RE2's enemies haven't returned because they mostly have. Sans maybe a couple ones that I'm fine with not coming back. But like the zombies were just they were mega buffed to the point where like I wouldn't even be upset if they were the only enemy in the game. Quite frankly, they're just always a threat because unlike Resident Evil 4 where if you shoot them in the head in Resident Evil 4 guaranteed a critical hit, blow their head off, they're not a problem anymore. But in this game it's more like you really shouldn't think about killing them. That should never be a thought in your mind.
Well, four wasn't an instant kill for
No.
Hedge, but it
But
was definitely like two shots max.
that was what they kind of wanted you to do is that like you shoot them in the arms or the legs to stagger them, but then you shoot them in the head if you want to do the real damage. Hence why
Mhm.
like Las Plagas would just pop out of their heads because the head's the weak point, the big dumb weak point. But here, like you could shoot them in the head like 5 times, they won't go down. I find it better to just clip off a limb than move on
Mhm.
instead of just killing them outright because you're really not like even if you get weapons like the shotgun in this game, like zombies will tank that shit. And that's what blew my mind. I used the shotgun for the first time. It blew a zombie's head off. But then I go to another zombie and it's like it takes 3 shots to the head. Head doesn't burst. Things still
Well,
moving.
sometimes you'll like clip a limb. If it clips anything and also hits the head, it is not going to be an insta kill. You have to literally put the barrel has to hit nothing but head.
Yep. It's a lot and I think there is like an RNG people like went into it. There is like a level of RNG to it. And I think that's fine, honestly. Like again, the point isn't to kill the zombies. That's
Yeah,
not.
because shooting him in the head does basically the same amount of damage as shooting him in the body, except you get a instant kill crit chance for shooting them in the face.
Zombies are seen more as like an obstacle rather than like a constant obstacle rather than like an opponent that you have to definitively defeat. They serve as like means to make getting around harder, getting maneuvering around rooms much more difficult, which I think is a good way of making the zombies feel kind of like old Resident Evil zombies, but in this camera
And
perspective.
this is how they made the game to the feel of the game instead of the actual like build of the old game, because it all just gets back to you need to learn how to path.
Yeah, you need
It's
to.
like how many times do you think you're gonna come down? You should probably kill everything in this hallway.
Yeah, You have to pick your battles. One thing I kind of found to be a bit of a missed opportunity was they implemented boarding up windows, something that wasn't found in the original. But I find that like
It was. It
what
was in the original too, but
was
instead of boards, you got wires to put into the fuse box so that the shutters would close.
oh, I see. Huh. I didn't know that. Well, here I guess like there's like more opportunities to like
Hmm.
there's more open windows in this game. But
And not boarding them up is way more of a threat because in the original one, it was kind of like a one time thing, like one interaction. You'd be going through a room, and at a specific point in the game, more zombies would just come through the window, and then that hallway's a mess now. But if you put the wire in the correct window, then they just flooded a room that you're probably never going to go back to anyway.
yep. Um, and
But in this one, it can happen basically anytime you come back to that room.
it'll spawn a new zombie.
Hmm.
One thing I find to be a bit of a missed opportunity, again, this could be different on hardcore, probably is, but at least on normal, I feel like they give you too many boards to the point where I felt like I had a board for every room. I was
You
like,
do.
yeah, I wish they would
They
have,
give you a board for every window, but you can still mess up.
yeah, I guess. I just found like I felt like I never messed up because I'm like, was never worried that I was lacking boards. So, I mean, it's a novel idea. And again, it's probably something that they really take advantage of in hardcore. But again, I'm a bitch. I didn't play hardcore. So, um,
Honestly, about the boards later.
yeah, but,
But he be on his speed run shit sometimes, so he probably doesn't even bother with the boards. He was like, I don't have to go back to those rooms anyway.
and speaking of going into rooms, the game kind of made a lot of really good quality of life decisions. Whenever
Mhm.
you enter a room, it'll always display the items that are still remaining in the room that you found.
Yeah, that is great.
It's so fucking good. And it means like, oh, I gotta go back here and then go get that ammo or that powder or whatever. Or I haven't unlocked this safe yet. I gotta go back. It's nice, especially for a game like this. And I think the final thing we can talk about with the gameplay that isn't like too spoilery is that you can play as two characters in this game, just like the original. You play either Leon S. Kennedy or Claire Redfield,
Hmm.
and the game kind of has a zapping system like the original. We'll we'll,
Hmm.
we'll get into that with spoilers, but let's just say it's not quite as robust as the PS1 version, but it is still appreciated all the same because like most people expected them not to put in zapping at all, but they did. So even if it's like not exactly the same, it's like it's still an
Yeah, the
admirable
zapping
thing.
system was like, but after like sitting on it for a while, I feel like they missed the point.
Yeah. What, like
Hmm.
with the original zapping system?
Yeah.
Why you say that?
We'll get into it when we start talking about the actual game.
Okay, which I think we could actually get into now. So from here on out, gamers, listeners, viewers, whomstever you are, we will be getting into story spoilers for Resident Evil 2. So I'll probably put a timestamp in the video description to let you know where to skip, like usual, if you want to experience the game story like clean. But yeah, for the time being, I think it's best if we approach it on a like A and B scenario type of way. Both characters have very similar A paths and B paths. There's just minor changes here and there that we can point out.
Hmm.
Um, so I think we'll start off with yeah, A path. I started off with Claire. Who did you start off with?
Same. Wanted to do it regular canon.
Yeah, because in the original game, the canon was Claire A, Leon B. So yeah, so getting into it, you start the game off a little bit differently from the original RE2, although like you have a fully explorable gas station segment because you're just getting gas and you're hearing some weird noises coming from, or at least like you're just gonna go talk to the attendant because I don't think the gas machine working. Right? Was that it?
Hold on a moment.
This. Yeah. Oh wait, the game. actually starts off with the trucker character. They sadly didn't. They sadly
Yeah, there's
didn't.
no. What a maniac!
Why'd he
That
bite
guy's
me?
a maniac. Why'd he bite me?
But he does have a really gross looking uh, sandwich that
Yeah,
he was masticating, and I'm like, oh no, I hate that. Why does the graphics have to make that sandwich look realistic and gross? And then they do that
I was
whole
like, that is definitely a truck stop microwave hamburger.
yeah. And then the guy stops because it seems like he hits a girl. Girl turns out to be a zombie,
He
and
doesn't seem like he hits it. He hits the
no, no,
fuck of that lady.
he hits the shit out of her. Surprised most of her body's not mush, but
Hmm.
basically she's a zombie and bites him, and then probably off screen goes the maniac. Why'd he bite me? I'd like to
That
hope.
girl's a maniac. Why'd she
Why'd
bite
you
me?
bite me? But yeah, then it cuts to either main characters, Claire or Leon, both of which stop at a gas station to get gas,
A set
and
piece taken from 3.
yeah, which is cool.
Hmm.
You go inside to a really well detailed gas station.
Hmm.
Um, I actually like. I think I walked around it for like a couple minutes in the footage I got, but yeah, like a lot of like high quality, diverse textures going on there, and I thought that was super cool. For just such a for a spot that you're really only going to be in for like 2 minutes, really.
Hmm. And they didn't have to do that spot where the zombie knocks over one of the shelves, and you're like, yeah.
Yeah, because then you go into the back and you see a zombie chomping on a boy, and it's like you got to find a key and get out, and then that's where you meet up with either the character you're not playing as.
You run into a cop that's really bad at multitasking, and then he gets himself bit.
Yeah, um, and you you know you drive with your partner. Like Claire and Leon both drive to Raccoon City in a police car, and yeah, they just that's where friendship begin. Um, and they notice that the Raccoon City Police Department seems to be kind of like a safe haven of sorts, even though it's really not. Um, they did a good job with that. Let's just say. But yeah, you know the usual thing that happened, right? Same thing as Resident Evil 2. Zombies start crowding the car, big truck careening down the friggin' street. The two characters jump out, uh, go separate ways. And then the street segment begins, which, if you've played the original, you will notice a difference right away. The street segment in this game is a minute long, and
Hmm.
not. You don't visit Kendo's gun shop, you don't run around the alleyways, you don't do any of that. You kind of just straight away go to the RPD.
Which I was a little bit disappointed about, but
Yeah, because the alleyway was aesthetically cool, and it set like a bigger scope than the first Resident Evil, where like, oh man, the zombie outbreak is reaching out to the streets now. All the pre-rendered
and we don't get
backgrounds.
weird pervy kendo.
We don't get strange Kendo with sorry about that. Thought you
I
were
don't
one
know,
of.
Darwin.
Kendo is placed differently in this game, and only for one character, and we'll get to that. But yeah, so you basically straight shot it to the RPD, and no matter who you're playing as, this segment is pretty much the same across the board. So you go in there, you explore around a bit, you find this guy just like on the camera running away from a zombie. You run into his general direction to try to save him, and then you literally like open up the big metal slider door to save him, and then the zombies start chomping on his legs, and that ends up dropping the slider door on him to show the insane gore effects of this engine.
A lot of chunky, juicy boys in here.
A lot of chunky, juicy boys. Apparently, it was super censored for the Japanese version. We only get
Hmm.
the hyper violent version of this game.
What a turnaround! What a sick mix up of time.
Yeah.
It's like
Um,
we used to get the censored shit. Now the thing made over there is uncensored over here for us.
because you know, ever since Mortal Kombat, the West glorifies gore. Um, but I guess like yeah, back to the whole thing. You're running for your dear life because this man got his other half of his body chomped and cut off, and it's spooky. And
And
then
there's like actually, due to clip friends clipping through everything, you can find that there's an actual zombie on the other side of that,
yeah, and that's super
actually
cool.
chewing on his butt the entire time.
Super cool attention to detail. They totally didn't need to put it there, but they did. They wanted to put in the butt chomping. He was eating ass.
A lot of ass eating zombies in this game.
But yeah, so we go back to the main hall
I can
and
remember about three.
narrowly escape the zombie horde thanks to our good old pal from the original game, Marvin Branagh.
Even though he's like gut bit or whatever the hell happened to him,
Yeah, he
uh,
got bit.
he
Um,
got rib bit somehow, but he could still pull you in with one arm.
yep.
That's
And
a tough man who's living through just sheer grit and adrenaline.
yeah, he's a G, and this is kind of where the differences between the two characters are already kind of apparent, and it's very subtle. The way Marvin talks to Claire is very different from how he talks to Leon. Claire, he's kind of just like being a bit softer too, a bit nicer, because you know she's Chris's sister, who's a respectable cop, and
Hmm.
Leon's like a rookie new boy, and he's kind of talking with him with a little more strictness and authority. Like,
Hmm.
don't be an idiot and shit. And I like that attention to
He's like, this
detail.
is gonna be my first and last orders to you as your lieutenant. So I'm gonna make him count. Have you got to get out alive.
Exactly. Um, and so, I guess from that point forward, it starts off the adventures throughout the RCPD, which doesn't have like a ton of doesn't really have like a ton of like plot stuff to talk about. But I think we can talk about some gameplay elements, such as finding the medallions, which
It
is
seems like with the rhythm we're going, we're going to be bouncing between A and B anyway. So I guess we'll play it by ear.
yeah, the medallion thing. For the B plot, we'll just talk more about like what's different because there really isn't like a ton, but we'll get into it. Yeah, we have to find the three medallions. And so basically, like,
And Billy gives you the book of the codes.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was trying to like come up with words. He gives you the code book, which is very amusing because it's poorly drawn, incredibly
It's not
poorly.
even really poorly drawn. It's actually a pretty skilled like figure drawing. It's basic. It shows you exactly what you need to see.
But it has an air of like wholesome childlike wonder to it.
It's like a nice freehand drawing where he didn't. It's like the drawing practice where you don't move your pencil off the paper. You just do the figure as best as you can while never lifting your pencil.
Yeah, and there's just like I guess like along the way, you know, not only do you encounter zombies, but you encounter an enemy called a licker, which is
Hmm.
a licky boy that crawls on the wall in the ceiling, and
Which was dangerous in the first version, but is both more and less dangerous in this game.
yeah, more because this thing can literally kill you in almost like one hit, particularly if you're not prepared, and
Hmm.
not only that,
That
but
tongue spear is basically insta kill.
yep, not only that, but also it goes off by actual sound. I'm not sure if this was a thing in the original. It goes off on
In the
sound,
original, everything technically followed you by sound.
right? Um,
Speedrunners found that out by just skiing everywhere.
but you could definitely,
That's when you just keep tapping the run button so their other foot doesn't hit the ground and it looks like you're playing electric football.
but that's kind of what, yeah, the deal with the lickers is they just have a much more robust reaction to either lack thereof, a little bit, or a lot of sound. Um, the scariest being, and this is actually again in the footage that I took. Um, I had a licker slowly creeping up on me, even though I was just slowly walking, and I had to keep
Hmm.
walking back. But he won't actually attack you. He won't attack you as
Hmm.
long as
He
you
might
don't,
make a spooky noise sometimes, but he won't attack until you start running or make a loud noise.
or if you touch him.
Hmm.
So that makes some really interesting scenarios for when it's like a crowded hallway. You have to kind of wait out the liquor. for him to go on the ceiling, and then you can kind of reliably move under him. But yeah, they're definitely really scary in this game. And you see them in varying degrees depending on the character you play as. But in the beginning of the game, no matter who you play, you will always see a licker on the second floor hallway near the RCPD office, no matter what. It's just always there. Um, and yeah, getting moving forward, you eventually, you collect all the medallions, you get your secondary weapons like the shotgun, or in Claire's case, the grenade launcher, which I
Hmm.
think they lowered the amount of grenade rounds you have in this game, because I think
What
was
you mean? Can put in the gun or
the
that you
the
get?
the variety of grenades that you can put in your gun. I think they lowered it from like 3 or 4 and now to 2, or was it always 2?
No, there was. Huh. Was
Because
there freeze rounds in that game?
I think there were freeze
I think freeze
rounds.
rounds came in at 3.
Maybe they were in 3, but in this game it's just pyro
Grenade,
and
acid, and fire.
yep. It was grenade, acid, and fire in the original, but now in this game I think it's just fire and acid.
Oh yeah, that's right. They just mixed regular grenades with fire grenades. It's just a fire explosion. There you go.
Yeah. And if I'm gonna be honest, I always like. I guess going into like weapon opinions here, I think the grenade launcher is a much more satisfying to use sidearm. Well, second weapon pickup. The shotgun is not what it used to be in the old RE. You can't just pop off enemy heads in one blow, so it feels a little more underwhelming, but still good.
I still like the shotgun better because you can when you get all the upgrades.
Oh, for sure, and it is incredibly punchy.
It's the problem solver.
It is. But then at least the grenade launcher from the jump is just like if you see a licker, it'll die. Although
Hmm.
sometimes not in one hit. That's the worst part.
Yeah.
But that's going to become more apparent when we get to the next segment the after the medallion bit, because when you get all the medallions, you assemble the MacGuffins. Um, Oh wait, well, in between all of that, you do end up meeting up with Claire again, and then you just get separated after the helicopter
And
crashes in the building.
you almost asked her to the prom through the fence, and then
That scene was super weird. And almost kind of forgettable. That's why I didn't even bring it up. I was like, and it's kind of the same no matter who you're playing. I think they just have little different banter no matter what. But
it's just weird because there's like a small hint of romance there that never shows up again.
yeah. It's super weird. And that's where the memes came from, with Chris like in his glowing eyes at Leon going, "Leon, you must propagate with my sister.
Mhm.
You must fuck her."
I still haven't seen any of those pictures.
My favorite one is where they took the boss from SMT2, Yahweh or whatever, the YVHV, and they replace
Oh,
his
Yahweh.
yeah, they replace his glowing head with Chris Redfield's glowing head, a bunch of his glowing heads. That one's my favorite. But yeah, so you get all the medallions. One of which was particularly tough because you were kind of forced to use some TNT, and that woke up a licker, and that was the first licker you were kind of almost forced to fight. Because if you
And it
didn't,
becomes even more annoying in B scenario.
oh yeah, it and oh, we'll get to that. So
Hmm.
yeah, so from here on out you go through the secret underground tunnel because the like Irons, Chief Irons, right? He's a psychopath who just made his. And it's funny because I think they gave even more lore implication as to why he made the RCPD like how it is. Like, not only is it set out of like an old museum, but like he's also a collector of like weird things.
He's always been a collector. The main change is that the police station used to be an art museum, and that's why it's shaped so weird and there's so much random shit in it.
Yeah, now people. I think now the excuse is just Chief Irons is a hoarder,
Mm.
or at
They
least that's what
added
I
Chief
like to
Warness
believe.
because it used to be an art museum instead of a police station that he made weird with stuff.
Hmm. But he has like a secret underground office that you then soon after fight a big, strange science man.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think. Do they both encounter Sherry?
No.
Okay, so like I didn't do a full playthrough of Leon Scenario A, so I'm really not 100% sure on that, but like um I do know like with Claire, you encounter Sherry and then she's like afraid of something.
She
And
is replaced with Ada.
oh, you meet Ada in that section? In
Yeah,
the
in the garage. Oh yeah, yeah, in the first place where you meet Birkin, Big Arm Birkin.
Birkin.
Yeah,
And
she's the person that you meet there.
then you have a big old fight with Birkin. And
Hmm.
I think it's fun to note that this was what I wanted to mention before regarding the game's difficulty. Apparently, if you run out of ammo, no matter what, your last shot will always kill Birkin. I think
That and also they littered ammo and health around the boss arena. So
so. So no matter what, you
if you were
will.
low, you're gonna have ammo
Yeah,
regardless.
and herbs. It was a very,
Hmm.
it was, honestly like it was a pretty good boss. I like the usage of. Uh, I like how halfway through the fight he like starts breaking out the smoke canisters
Hmm.
and the room gets all foggy and makes it a
Yeah,
little
and if
more
you run away
difficult.
from run too far away from him, he freaking drops on you.
Yeah, and I love watching people do the janky shit with the knife. You just run up on him and knife his eye a bunch.
Just get in his hitbox. Just point down, get in his hitbox, and just start slashing away.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It's really fun to watch. I've tried to do it before. I tried doing it on my B playthrough, and it was like half successful.
He was like, I didn't have to use as much ammo. I got hit a bunch, but I didn't have to use much ammo.
Yeah. So from that point forward, after you beat Birkin, I think you do
Big arm Birkin.
Big Arm
The one with
Birkin.
the pipe wrench?
Big old
I
pipe.
mean, the one with the lead pipe?
I mean, Capcom loves their lead pipes.
Hmm.
But from that point forward, you meet up with Sherry or Ada, right?
Yes.
I don't know if you meet Ada in the first Birkin. I think you just meet her in the parking garage afterwards, right? I could be wrong.
She kicks down the ladder for you after you,
Right. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
and then you meet her later in the parking garage.
I see.
So it's
So
like she's there, but she's technically not there.
so with Leon you meet Ada, and with Claire you meet Sherry, um, and then you no matter what you eventually go to the parking garage where this is also another a bit of a point of a convergence or rather like divergence, because this is kind of where like it's more focused on the secondary characters. So you get stuff with Ada if you play as Leon. You get stuff with Sherry and Chief Irons if you play Claire. Well, actually, specifically, if you're with Leon, you also meet the reporter who gets got
Yeah,
in the jail.
Benny
He's been trying to like expose Umbrella
or
Corp.
Ben.
I
I'm
think
kind of upset that they stripped his line away.
what was his line?
Well, they stripped some of his lines away, like but the way he died is in this game is different. So,
Yeah, and I feel like he's not on screen nearly as much in this game.
because you have to in the original one, you have to leave and come back to him, and then you get another bit of conversation, and then he gets got.
The garage feels about as long as it did in the original game, if I remember correctly. I don't think it's all that different, but what is pretty different is depending on who you're playing will determine the threat. Because if you're playing as Leon, you're going to be fighting Cerberus down there. You fighting dogs, but if
The
you're
main change is the clock tower isn't connected to
the
that
parking
bottom
garage,
part anymore.
yeah,
Like they changed, they put more stuff into the sewer, like
which we
the
oh yeah the sewer. We will get to that. Oh man, the sewer segment, but
yeah,
yes,
because you encountered the chess piece thing to get into the sewers in the original one, but
they kind of mix it up with that.
yeah,
But I think yeah, like that the main differences yeah are the characters that you interact with and the enemies that you fight. Because again, Leon fights the Cerberuses, and Claire fights the Lickers, which sounds like that's worse, but because Claire has a friggin' grenade launcher, you should have the grenade launcher by that point. It's
Mhm.
less of a problem than you'd think. And it's weird because people said that they found the dogs really hard, but I find that like if you stand still, like it kind of
The dogs pump fake and juke a lot in this game. Like they'll fake start running,
yeah.
and that can make you, if you're not steady handed enough, it'll make you waste.
But I
And
do
then another dog could come and flank you and get you from.
yeah they're definitely they definitely have that pack mentality, but like I find that
They weren't
just
that hard to me. I guess I'm just steady handed like that. I was just popping them with my pistol.
me too, and I find that also standing still makes them easy to deal with because then you're not also because when you're moving it makes it a little more complicated because now you're focusing on also where you're going and dealing with the dogs. But if you just stand still, you can kind of just survey the dogs, watch its patterns. When it stops clearly just barking at you, you can pop it in the face. Um,
And you could do some slight AI manipulation because they change how they move when you point at them.
yeah. Um,
So you can like point at them, make it do a pump fake, and then get the shot off before it actually starts running.
right. And I guess like yeah, the whole goal is like to basically get out of the parking garage and leave the RCPD. But both cases, I think that gets that chance gets like shot essentially. At least I know with Claire, Chief Irons comes into the mix, ties you up, and kidnaps Sherry, bringing her back to the orphanage.
Hmm. But it was at the point where you didn't have the key card anyway. So
Yeah. Um, and with Leon, you meet up with the reporter. He gives you like a lowdown on like what his deal is and
hmm
Ada's deal, and you get got. He gets got by a big man, a mysterious big man.
that's about to expose his dirty ass.
Yeah, who is about to. We are about to get into him very
hmm
shortly, because then it soon loops back up to the RPD where we deal with the whole new, basically like whole new third floor segment of the game. Regarding actually, this segment really isn't all that long, no matter who you play as, and there's a big reason for it. That is because what the second you go into the hallway that has the crashed helicopter, big man T00 Tyrant, Q from Street Fighter 3 shows up. uh, this big man becomes a problem for you no matter who you play as for this whole segment, and that is something
He
also different.
basically is Q. Like his lunging punch is, he makes the exact same body shape and everything.
They knew exactly what they were doing
hmm
when they
And
did
his
it.
double axe handle.
Yep. And he has a command grab, and he's not worth fighting. Not at all. Not in this game.
hmm
In and
Command grab that they no doubtly stole from Nemesis.
they definitely implemented a little bit of nemesis into him because no matter where you are in the RPD, he will eventually find you.
hmm
That is something very different from the original because in the original, it was more scripted where he would show up and more contained. Here, no matter where you are, no matter what room you're in, except for maybe like two save rooms, not including the main save room, he can go in there too, which I'm sure blew everyone's minds. Um, he
Well, anyone who didn't play the original anyway,
yeah. Uh
because he takes over he walks through the main hall.
in the original.
Yeah,
Okay. And yeah, he's a much less scripted opponent this time around. He's a
and this is another instance of them playing to the intent and the feel of the game rather than
rather
straight
than
up structure. Because he in the original he was supposed to feel like he was just walking around and showing up on you everywhere.
mm-hmm.
But
But
this, they were actually able to do it complete with also instances where he will just teleport up on you when you go into certain rooms, like when you get the jack,
mm-hmm.
so that you can move the bookcase back down so you can push it over.
Yeah, he rubber
He pops
bands.
up on you right next to that room unless I think you downed him before that.
A lot of people had problem with Tyrant's AI in this game. I personally fucking love it. Like
Mhm.
And I think it's a perfect segment to have him being a threat because it's also not long. If you get good at this game, that segment is like a half hour at best. That you are not in the because you are on the move constantly. You're not even thinking about it. You're like charting your route, and it's as simple as literally like finding a gear, finding a couple keys, finding the jack for the bookcase, and then yeah, my dog is barking like crazy. This going up to the clock tower, activating that, and basically getting the two electrical boxes to open up a room in the I think like the Iron's office to get the key in question.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that point forward, I will say they do have one scripted thing for Mr. X that they keep for they kept from the original. It doesn't always happen though, which is extra messed up. He will break through the wall of the same room that he did in the original game near Chief Iron's office, and I fucking love that.
Yeah, that did only happen to me once. I was like, "Whoa!"
It didn't happen to me. It didn't happen to me on my first playthrough, but it did happen to me on my second playthrough, in my B playthrough.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh!" And then I was like, "Ah!" And then I came back. I was like, "Hey!"
Extra cool though, because that actually opens
I
up.
remember that. I clapped when I saw it.
Yeah, and it actually opens up a shortcut to another part of the RCPD, which actually is more beneficial than harmful. So I kind of like it when he does that. To be real, I get sad when he does it. I'm like, "Aw, he's not near me. Aw, you can't bust this wall down, make it easier to travel around. Damn, that sucks." But yeah, after you deal with that whole segment, you get the two electric boxes, and then yeah, you get access to the key card for the garage. And this is also where the game kind of diverges a little bit because then you get the segment where you answer the phone as Claire, and then you're playing as Sherry in a very Resident Evil 7 segment where it's more about stealth because you're essentially in an orphanage, hiding from Chief Irons, who's being a creepy big boy. Yeah, a brand new edition, and the goal is to just do some light puzzles, some stealth, find your way out. This is also the segment where you find out what he did to the mayor's daughter, which is again only implied visually in this game. They don't outright tell you. Because in the old game, he's just sitting at his desk with the dead corpse of the fucking like the second you meet him, he has her dead body on his desk. There's no subtlety whatsoever.
I don't think he did it though, because in the old game, well, maybe he did it, but in the old game, the dialogue you have with her, she got bit. Now I got the freaking mayor's daughter here. It's some bullshit.
I think
my town is destroyed.
I think in this game they kind of tried to pin him as more of a psychopath. And apparently there's lore even in the game that he was like convicted of something before he did become the police chief, so he was always like a seedy individual. So I wouldn't be shocked if like he ended up killing the mayor's daughter. They imply it very heavily in this game. But evidently, your escape from the orphanage is a futile effort.
But in both, it was very clear he was going to taxidermy them. So
yeah, it was a futile effort for the mayor to, not the mayor, the police chief, to basically like get, you know what I mean? Like you couldn't get away from him. I do think you blinded him in one eye though.
Threw some acid right in his face.
So essentially, getting back into it, I think someone's knocking on the door of my house. Oh no, are we about to have a real podcast moment? If anything, can you fill the air with talking about the Leon part? Because again, I didn't do the Leon A part, so I guess go on about that. I'll be right back in like a minute.
All right. So with the Leon A part, all right. So where were we? Yeah, you run into Ada. You pseudo run into Ada after you beat Big Arm Pipe Wielding Birkin, and then you go through. You see her at the parking garage. You almost get jumped by a. You triple tap the dog, and then What else happens? Oh yeah, you follow her to Ben, and Ben is all like, "I
Sorry
got
about
the
that.
yeah." Ben is like, "I got the information. I'm about to." It's like lock me up because I wrote this sick ass article on his dirty ass. I'm about to get him locked up. I'm about to get him impeached. And so he was like, "Just open the door." And Leon's being a freaking Boy Scout dummy. He's like, "I don't know. I gotta ask the chief." Even though there's clearly like no living souls left in the police station.
He's such a fucking Boy Scout. He is such a Boy Scout.
And then he backs up, and our boy, Mr. Big Gray Fist, Mr. Giant Gentleman, Mr. X reaches his hand through the wall and grabs your boy Ben by the face
Yep.
and pops it like a rotten cherry.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And it's some shit.
But in the
Really.
original, he gets killed by Birkin. He gets a G mutant placed in his mouth, and it
Yeah.
bursts out his stomach.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it tears him in half, actually.
Yeah, which is really. Actually, I think that happens to Chief Irons.
Happens to both of them
Oh,
in
okay.
the original.
And I guess that was like the parking garage segment for Leon in more detail, but yeah, and then you do the whole second visit to the RPD with
But yeah,
him.
like I said, I miss Ben's freaking do it for me last line in the original. It was like, get that scum, make him pay.
It's strong. Um, but yeah, then you go through like the whole spiel with going through the RPD, and that is one thing I forgot to mention. No matter who you play as, you will fight you will contend with Mister X in that part. Something very different from the original because Leon, or rather whoever was doing playthrough B would have to deal with Mister X. But we'll get
And
into
which is
that
part
because
one where I feel like they don't get the point of the zapping system.
yeah. Um, but I think, yeah, from that point forward, I think you go back to the parking garage as Leon, I think, right?
Is it your connection or your gate? Because
What was that?
you're being a bit choppy.
Am I choppy?
I
Uh,
think it might be the connection.
it might be. But I guess I'm coming out okay from, I guess, like my computer. But basically, uh, you go back to the parking garage as Leon, I think, right? To use the card. I think you go
Yeah.
back to the parking garage no matter who you're playing as, but that's
Hmm.
where because you don't have that
But they
phone.
find the card in different places.
Yeah.
Ben
So
has the card in Leon's, and in Claire's, you find it in like a lower part of Chief Irons' office near his elevator.
yeah. Then do you even visit RPD the second time as Leon in playthrough A?
The second time,
Like,
yeah, you do have to double back,
okay, all right, just making sure. But
and they give you extra items for other film that you find.
right. But this is where in both cases you're back out on the street.
And
Um,
you go back and get that lightning hawk.
yeah, the Lightning Hawk. They both have other special weapons you can get by getting a special badge that turns into a flash drive that I didn't even know they had in the 90s. What the heck, Capcom?
They did, but I don't think they were as readily available.
Yeah, but basically,
Long story short, I don't think that police station would have had that set up.
no. You get, yeah, for Leon, you get a Lightning Hawk, which is a really powerful Magnum.
It's just a
Um,
Desert Eagle.
yeah, basically a big old deagle that you could put a lot of ridiculous parts on, make it
Hmm.
look silly. And
You make it look like the Nintendo Zapper from Death Wish 3
yeah,
or some Charles Bronson shit.
yeah. So from that point forward, Claire also gets the TMG, the machine pistol that you can also upgrade, give like a silencer, I think.
Hmm.
extended mag and all that. And that one's pretty okay. I kind of think the grenade launcher's better. They kind of blew their load with that. I think that's like her best weapon. But the machine pistol does come in handy later on, particularly.
They always do that though. Like there's always a secondary weapon that's not as useful. In the original, I think she got a crossbow. Yeah,
Yeah, and
she got
that
a
one was
crossbow.
awful. I'm glad they didn't bring that back. I think this is a
I
better.
made use of that thing. Those explosive rounds are pretty good.
Yeah, the explosive rounds are decent. But
But mostly I was just using it when I got bored of using the pistol, and I was like, I got all these fucking arrows. I got all these bolts. I got to use them on something.
yeah, but yeah, going into it though, we then end up on the streets. Claire going for Sherry, who she knows is in the orphanage, and Leon going walking with Ada to the after
Oh, yeah,
Ada.
before we completely stop talking about the police station, two things that they dropped, and since we're going to the sewers anyway, two things that they dropped were the crows and the spiders, and who cares?
Who cares about the spiders? They were fucking
Those
silly.
big beanie baby spiders that you never get hit by.
That kind of just float around the wall and look stupid. I think we
Just
laughed.
these Halloween decorations are coming after
I,
you.
I remember when we did the Let's Play on Team Not Crash, we would always make dumb jokes and laugh at the spiders. If I remember correctly, just how stupid they were. But yeah, but then I'll get into this later because if they remove the big stupid spiders, they could have removed the other big stupid thing. We'll get to that.
But they did, and I'm glad they did.
So yeah, this is where we move out to the streets, and this is where basically the newest chunk of the game begins, where you're going to the orphanage to save Sherry, and that's pretty cut and dry. That's where what happened in the original game, where Chief Irons got by Birkin, happened, and then he spews out a G parasite that goes into the sewers subsequently.
Mm.
And then you rescue Sherry from this point. And then with Leon and Ada, you visit the Kendo gun store, which is a moved scene and a much more feels scene in this game. Cause holy
Mm-hmm.
shit, they just they didn't even have to add this scene, but they did, and I'm kind of happy they did because it was a really sad, poignant, beautiful scene. It was sad.
Because as it
The
stood,
acting was amazing.
Kendo part was funny in two. It was kind of a joke after a while, especially because of the voice acting. In the actual release, for some reason they modulated Kendo's voice down so he sounded creepy.
Yeah.
And then he gets guys. Ah, ah, ah!
But here it's a really sad moment to kind of give a poignant example of the state of affairs that
He's like, well, yeah, this is the city.
mhm. And he's naturally a very paranoid dude who's kind of in denial because his daughter got bitten and he's trying to take
Mm.
care of her, and
But she fighting it though.
she's fighting it. Um
She was fighting it real hard.
that scene reminded me of The Walking Dead, only they didn't draw it out for a million episodes and it was
Mm.
good. It was just a really a tone reminder scene, and it was
Mm-hmm.
good, and the acting was really good. I mean, the acting in the whole game is really good, but particularly there, whoever did Kendo did a phenomenal job for the small role that he had. But
Mm-hmm.
from that point forward,
Kendo and Black Lieutenant are the two best actors in the game.
hmm from that point forward, you move to the sewer segment, um, and you encounter the cable car. But I think you do get separated from Sherry as Claire. Or no, Sherry gets bitten by Birkin, and you have to go save her, and then eventually cure her.
Mm-hmm.
For Leon, you have a whole dumb segment with the sewer gator from the original game. It is the only part of the game that is like this, where it's a fucking Crash Bandicoot level that you run at the camera, and then you kill it literally the same way. And and then you separate with from Ada Wong, and this is where her playable segment is, where you hack a
Back to
bunch
the
of.
gator. I do kind of wish that they left it the original way it was instead of making it a fucking Temple Run level.
Yeah, me too. That's why I was like, oh, this is so. If you're gonna get rid of the spiders and you're gonna get rid of the crows, why is this okay to keep in? Like, if you're trying to make this game more serious and not like a big dumb action movie,
It's
why do
like
you keep
this. You
this
can
big
tell that this
stupid sewer
portion was
gator?
specifically for the fans
Yeah.
because, like, in the original, it shows up. It's like, what the fuck, giant gator, and you can actually kill it with bullets if you have enough bullets.
Mm,
But like the tank was there as you noticed it, you managed to observe it, and you got the cool kill.
yeah. Um.
But I guess they figured that the game's so old that people it's not a discovery anymore, so they were like, let's just put it in as a nod.
Mhm. But I guess yeah, getting back to it, the Ada Wong segment is much worse than the Sherry segment, because the Sherry segment was like
Super spy Ada Wong
awkwardly hacking panels. When did this technology? How could she do this in 1998
with her hack gun.
with her hack gun? Don't even worry about it.
Shut up, secret agent. Government's lying to you.
Yeah,
Alien technology.
Alex Jones.
The harp.
Yeah, but getting into this segment though, it's also not that long like Sherry's, but I do find it a little more annoying, particularly because you actually have to deal with enemies, and you also have to deal in the final stretch. Mr. X shows up to just ruin your day, and it's just like you kind of have to juke the man.
A lot of people, I've been watching a lot of streams, and a lot of people have a problem with that part, and they keep trying to game the system.
But you can't
Like,
because if you
especially I'm talking about the part where he comes in behind you and you have to hack the door open and be like, oh crap, 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 crap.
yeah.
People kept trying to close the door on him. I was like, there's no way that's gonna work, and it doesn't work. You cannot close the door on him.
Nope, he will. He doesn't give a shit. He will show up anyway. Um, I think it's a much shorter segment than the Sherry one. It's less scripted. You can speed run it a little more effectively, but it is like still a pain nonetheless. And this is where, for Leon at least, you meet up with Sherry's mom.
Mm-hmm.
And what was her name? I know last
What
name
was her name?
Birkin. It's like Sherry Birkin and William Birkin. Annette Birkin, right?
Yeah, you
Um,
meet up with her in both scenarios,
you do.
but
But she has a different
with Ada,
role.
she pops off. But with Jill, she's like, "You fucking my daughter, leave me alone."
Yeah. And then with her, she kind of pops off on Ada because Ada's a treacherous bitch, as we know. And she's just like, I'm gonna burn you alive, haha, idiot. And so that's kind of like a hack boss, where you have to hack out of the furnace room.
And they did the best they could to try to make it make sense, but it's such a web of stuff that it's
It's
you,
shit.
I don't know. I died the first time I did it.
There's no mistaking it. It was just a very messy boss. Not a lot of people like it. I didn't like it. I didn't have fun. And yeah, I was happy when it was over. But then basically, no matter who you're playing as, Sherry and or Ada get trapped in the same room, and you have to
At the same time?
at the same
I
time,
don't know.
some weird continuity bullshit going on. But
Some weird quantum shit going on right now.
yeah, you essentially have to, rescue them, and that is what the whole sewer segment is all about: is rescuing the homie of your respective campaign. And for Claire, again, like you were saying, she does have like an intercom talk with Annette, and Annette is much less malicious for Claire. She's just kind of like like a bitchy mom.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah,
A
so
bitchy and neglectful mom. Just like, you fucking let me worry about it.
in Resident Evil 2, the sewer system was merely a couple of hallways. In this
Mm-hmm.
game, the sewer segment is like more than half the size of the RCPD. It is huge. It is big. It is like 3 rooms you will not visit for the most part. Um,
I think literally they took one piece from the earlier bits, one piece from the parking area, and one piece from the end lab, and threw those in there also.
right. So, like, yeah, you basically have to go through the sewers, deal with like the same kinds of zombies you've been dealing with. No like lickers or dogs, but then they do introduce a new kind of, or actually no, he's not a new
They
enemy.
turned a boss into a sub boss regular enemy,
Yeah, the G mutant or G child,
the G adults.
the G adult, right? So G adult in the original is a pretty like spankable boss, but then like
Hmm.
in this game they turn it
It
into
just
a
stands there, looks ugly, and spits G children at you.
yep, and he does the same thing in this game, only you have to now fight more of them, and
And
they
now
have
they can
more
power
sneaky
swim.
bullshit.
And now they have a power swim command grab.
Yep. That they can do the second that you enter a certain point, and you immediately have to start backing up when they do, or they will get you. There's nothing you can do about it.
Hmm.
The best thing to do if you don't want to fight them is to try to run around the side of them that has the tiny arm and not the big arm.
Hmm. And they poison you, and it's annoying.
And it should be, and this is actually a good spot to mention a small difference with the mixing. You can actually mix all three herbs together now to increase your defense and gives you resistance to poison.
Hmm.
Very handy, especially for this segment. So I hope
I
y'all.
don't know if that's not in the original, but in the new one, there's an indicator in the corner when it happens.
Yeah, and it is handy as hell, and y'all is better saved your blue herbs that I definitely know you haven't been using the whole game.
Hmm.
Uh,
Never not be making perfect herbs. Never not be always trying to mix blue, red, green.
Yeah, because you're gonna need them for like the whole second half of the game. Even without like the again, even taking away the fact that it like helps cure and prevent poison. Again, that defensive buff is just good for bosses.
And they give you more than enough green herbs to where if you make a mistake, you could use a green herb and not miss out on
Yep,
herb.
but you should specifically be saving blue herbs and red herbs if you can, just to
You
mix them
shouldn't
up.
be using blue herbs by themselves ever.
No, you really shouldn't. It's a waste. It's a bad idea. So by that point, you should have like a couple in your inventory, and yeah, it is a hell of a segment that involves you finding chess piece keys.
And
To,
another great change with the herbs is that you can mix them in any different combination you want. In
yep.
the old games, for some reason, if you mixed blue with red, you could not get a green in there.
Mm-hmm. Um. Yeah. So you basically have to have a whole segment though, where you end up finding a bunch of chess piece keys, traveling through the sewers, fighting the G adults, and then eventually also finding the fourth weapon for every character. Claire gets the big wild rail lightning tether gun
Hmm.
that I kind of love. I
I do. I love the Zeus gun.
The Zeus gun is really cool. And what does Leon get?
He gets a flamethrower.
Ah, right, yeah. He gets the chemical thrower. So basically, you get all that, and once you get all the keys, you assemble it all together. Um, a big dumb claw starts punching through the wall and through the ceiling, and guess who it is? Your old friend Boykin,
Now he's
William.
Big Claw Birkin.
Now he's got a big. He mutated more, and this fight
Hmm.
is. It was really annoying for me at first until I realized that I'm an idiot and it's actually really easy.
Mm-mm.
Because all you have to do is just stun him in the center of the stage, activate the big, like, crate machine to come,
The crane mover, the box mover.
the big box crane to slam him off the stage. But he prevents that the first time, but then the second time you'll get him for sure. So he's technically a boss that only requires 2 hits to kill. Outside of you really shouldn't be wasting too much ammo on this fight, is what I'm saying. Cause
Unless you're speed running, then you try to hurt him so it only takes one box swing to kill him.
yep, um, I do think it is based on health. So,
Hmm.
yeah, then you beat him, and then you save either subsequent character, um, and they both have like wholesome moments with them, like Claire's all worried about Sherry because turns out that yeah, Will bit hit her, gave her the G virus, and Ada Wong just got hurt because Annette is a dick.
Yeah, she fell into the garbage heap, and a stray piece of metal just got her in the leg.
Yeah, and like you just kind of Leon and Ada have like a couple romantic moments.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's cheesy, it's corny, but I like them. They're wholesome. And
Mm.
yeah, you get on the cable car, which I find to be not quite as iconic of a scene as the original, because the build up to the cable car was like a moment of like reflection and like solitude before the big drop of everything, and the backgrounds were aesthetic as hell.
Also, in the original, that's when Ada gets hurt. She gets punched in the head by William.
Yeah. Um, and then yeah, you fight William the Third. I think. No, wait, you don't fight William. I'm thinking Resident Evil. Dang, I'm thinking of old Resident Evil 2.
Mm.
But yeah, no matter what, you go on the cable car, and for for different reasons, Leon's trying to just get the G virus because he's a cop trying to do the right thing, wants to destroy it.
And it
Um,
is like, get the G virus because I'm the law and we need it.
and then for Claire, you get the G virus so Annette can reverse engineer it and make a cure
Get
for.
get the virus and the sample.
Yep,
There's two of them.
right, right. So that Annette can cure Sherry of her G virus. And yeah, this is where the Umbrella Lab bit starts. And this segment is, again, mostly the same, no matter who you're really playing as. You do fight Plant 42 in this game like the original, but they severely changed
Plant
Plant
43.
42 to Plant 43 now. And they're
Because
basically
Plant 42 was in Resident Evil 1.
I haven't seen too many people make this comparison, but they're basically Iron Maidens now. Like
Yeah.
from Resident Evil 4. They're yep, they are Iron Maidens. The second that they even get near you, you will die. They will insta
Hmm.
kill you. There's nothing you can do about it.
And
You
that's why the game allows you to use weapon counters even when they grab you from behind.
yep. And the only way to kill them permanently is to burn the body. That is it.
Burn them until they crisp up.
There's no reason to use any other weapon other than a weapon that can set them on fire.
Hmm.
That is wasting ammo otherwise. I think a lot of this segment's very similar to the original game. The whole like getting like the coolant to just or like the pesticide to like kill the plant. Um, except I think doesn't Leon encounter Mr. X in this segment at some point?
Yes, in B scenario.
Yeah.
Is it only in B scenario?
No,
No, I
no.
think it's just.
No matter
Huh.
who you play as, actually, I think. The second that you get the formula and you activate it, and then
Mr. X
you
doesn't show up for Claire in that part.
okay, so it's only for Leon.
Yeah, he burst through the glass, and then now, whoops! Now you got to try to get past these Iron Maidens while also Mr. X is on your tail.
Yep, and that doesn't actually last that long. He
Hmm.
doesn't unlike in the earlier segment, he doesn't pursue you throughout the entire umbrella facility. You
Yeah, you
just
just got to get to the bridge.
you just this little part. Once you get to the bridge, you go to the next wing where you find the sample, and from that point forward, you leave and you fight. Well, you're about to fight second form Birkin, but then Annette shows up. No matter who you're playing as, to use the stop Birkin gun to,
Yeah, her ice ray.
her freeze ray to stop Birkin where he is and put him to sleep. You have a bit of a conversation. I think the conversation is the same no matter what the game is. No matter who you're playing as. I mean, I actually no. I think she's more like don't trust Ada to Leon. Like gives her
Yeah.
her whole spiel. And then like Claire's like, oh, get this thing to your daughter. She needs it, or she'll go
Here,
and become a
sorry, I'm a
zombie.
bad mom.
I'm a bad mom. So from here on out, no matter who you're playing as, you fight Birkin 3. and that is
Mm-hmm.
a really rough fight.
All forearms Birkin.
Yeah, that fight is rough. I hear on higher difficulties, it's a run killer, that fight, because he is just it is a very claustrophobic environment. Like, it won't seem like it is at first, but then you notice he can pick things up and throw them at you, and his
Mm-hmm.
hitbox is huge because his new
Yep.
big claws, and it's
And
like
sometimes he just does what he wants.
he does Rembus.
Those Rembus can carry him basically to the entire, almost the whole length of the stage, or maybe it could do like half the stage. One of his stupid spinny Rembus.
It's one of those fights too that also gives you like a lot of ammo around, a lot of ammo, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't make the fight any easier to me. It's still a really difficult fight. Probably the hardest boss in the whole game. And yeah, like once you conquer Bill Birkin Form 3, um, you you rescue Sherry, who, like, you find out that Annette got to her just in time, and then Annette has like kind of a tragic death because she kind of
Because she did get picked up and shit whipped into a wall by a giant monster.
yep. And like, it's a sad moment because she kind of has a yeah, it's like she went far for her daughter, even though she was like hurt and dying. She like traveled all the way across the umbrella facility just to save her right before dying. So I think like oh man, like the Claire bit definitely paints her as more of a heroic figure, but Annette is a bit more ambiguous of a character for Leon. Um, and I think this is where, yeah, like for Leon, you encounter Ada, and then he starts questioning Ada because, it's like, you could have told me all this. You were double crossing me. You think I'm an idiot? And then does she fall down? I think Mr. X picks her up and throws her in this game, right?
No, the bridge starts to
Oh yeah, the
break,
bridge starts to break, and then you
and
go.
then she falls down, and then well, Annette shoots her first, and then the bridge starts to break,
Yeah.
and then and then she falls.
Yep, and I think Annette dies there too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then from that point forward, you got to go to the cable car. You got to haul ass because it's got a Metroid
No, Annette
time.
almost dies there.
Yeah, it's got a Metroid time ticker. Just be like, get the f out of Dodge, get out of here, get out of here. Um, and yeah, for Claire, you'll pick up the minigun, and you'll fight Birkin 4,
Mm-hmm.
who they
Dog Birkin.
they kind of it's weird because they definitely changed the design completely, but like he still
Mm-hmm.
has moves where he's on all fours like the old game. But
Yeah.
this is like the most drastic redesign for a Birkin form in the whole game.
Dog Birkin was changed to Superfly Jimmy Birkin.
Yep. And fun enough, that fight you again have a big minigun, so it's kind of almost effortless to beat him. But
You get a full ass minigun while he's climbing the walls to sick body splashes.
yeah. And then for Leon, you have a much more difficult encounter with Mr. X.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I had way more problems with this than Birkin 3.
because you don't get a special weapon until literally like a certain damage threshold, much like the
And
original.
also, he's fast and he could get up on you real quick.
He also has a running command grab with a wide hitbox that will instant kill you no matter what.
He
Um,
swings wide and he's fast. He's just hard to be away from.
yeah, he's a fight you have to you unlike Birkin 4 where you can kind of not really like pay attention and just shoot him. Um, Super Tyrant is like a fight that you actually have to fight on his own terms. He's probably the second
Hmm.
hardest boss in the whole game, or maybe the first hardest boss, depending on where you are. Ammo wise, really dictates how hard that encounter is.
And
But
also, you just don't be wasting herbs. This is
don't
why you should now have a whole bunch of perfectly mixed herbs.
see. I was a stubborn boy, and I didn't bring any first aid sprays because I'm like, I don't want to decrease my rank. But apparently, that's not the case in this game. You can just use health sprays; it won't decrease shit. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm an idiot. I had like 10 of them in my box.
I
Whatever.
didn't really use sprays either.
I was just
So,
paranoid about
but like I
something
said,
those
I played the
sickos.
game honest, and I had a bunch of full herbs
Hmm.
by the end.
Um, and then yeah, from that point forth, you escape. After, well, for Leon, you get the rocket like Ada, who turns out to somehow still be alive in the
Hmm
shadows, drops you a missile launcher, and you have that classic Resident Evil moment where you blow this man's in half with a missile, and
Just fight over.
yeah, and that's it. That's it for Path A, at least. Um, Path B, though, I will say, mostly has a lot of the same. Depending on no matter who you play as, you're gonna get the same cutscenes. So, like, if you played Claire, the stuff that we talked about with Leon is still gonna happen in Path B. What really changes though, are certain placements of items, things that you have to do. Are it's a much shorter
And how much
campaign.
Mr. X you get.
How much Mr. X you get, because Mr. X shows up the first time you enter the second floor near the RCPD office. He shows up like,
But in B scenario, you can make him show up immediately by looking at the laptop,
yeah. No,
and
actually,
it basically mimics the spook from when you're starting the tram, and then you look at the camera, and he's like, "What?" and he punches the camera out.
I've done that. He doesn't show up when you do that. That's just an optional thing you can look at just to get you scared, because it's like, oh no, he's in the building already. It's there to get it in your mind that, oh no, path B is going to be a lot harder. It's really when you get to that second floor hallway that he shows up. It's always
Mm,
there. um but yeah, it's a much quicker play, but also potentially longer, because more shit's thrown at you. There are more liquors in the building, that's for one.
yep.
Mr. X always there. Makes like doing some of the puzzle, that's why they also like streamlined like the acquisition, I think, of the medallions, because they kept it in mind, like, okay, like maybe this shouldn't be nearly as annoying if Mr. X is skulking around.
But they
um
did also made it so that finding the answers to the puzzles were in two parts.
yeah. um and what's even more fun though is when you get the notes for the medallions and the passwords. Part of like the third one is scribbled out to add to the difficulty. Like, you could just vaguely make out what symbol it's supposed to be.
And there's a
um
page missing. Like I said, you
yeah.
have to find it in two parts.
Yep. It's a much harder play. um and aside from plot differences, no matter who you play, path B will pretty much be the same, uh aside from, again, just like the stuff we already mentioned. But the biggest thing that Path B does, outside of like reorienting the first part of the game, is the ending. Because I didn't think they would do this, Leon. I didn't think they would bring big dumb Form 5 Train Birkin back.
Hmm. I
But
figured they would,
they fucking did. I was just
because
like,
he's just a set piece anyway.
oh my god, like they actually did it, and he looks absolutely disgusting.
Hmm
Oh man, dude, I fucking lost my shit. And it was actually a little difficult. Like, the window of like DPSing him down enough is like a lot smaller than original RE2, I find.
You don't have to. You just wait for him to open the eye.
Hmm. It's weird because for me, like kind of got bodied the first time I did it. Even with his eye open, I just didn't have enough. I guess I didn't shoot him in the eye enough.
Hmm
But regardless, yeah, that fight was really cool.
I
If
got killed the first time too.
if a bit easy, but really cool. And then you get wholesome ending where the three walk off in the desert and not burn out now plays. I wish it did.
Time to stop Umbrella.
I wish they kept that line, but I'm also happy they didn't, because I think the
I
ending for
wish they
this
kept the
game.
song.
Hmm? Yeah, me
I
too.
wish they kept the song, but they made their own butt rock song.
Yeah, and I think the ultimately, like, the ending that they went with was more poignant for the setting of the game and
Mm.
all that. But yeah, so I think that wraps up Resi 2 for the most part. And from that point forward, you actually unlock, just like the original game, you unlock hunk mode. And then when you beat hunk mode, just like the original, you unlock tofu mode, where you
I
play as
have
a.
yet to do those.
Apparently, they actually like mocapped tofu for
Mm-mm.
tofu. And
Yeah, he actually looks like tofu instead of just egg
yeah,
ray block.
mm-hmm. And it's amazing. And yeah, like, and then after that, you can also choose to. You'll unlock like the original costumes for the characters from RE2. I think you can download like pixelated
Mm-hmm.
64 like bit
Jaggy ass
jaggy
PlayStation 2.
characters. Yeah,
Jaggy ass PlayStation 1 models.
yeah, and that's like wholesome as hell. Especially in the cutscenes with the beautifully animated characters, you just see Jaggy, Leon, or Claire just not moving their lips. It's great. It's great. This game is a good. It's a good value for if you want like a $60 game with not a whole lot of like DLC aside from the free stuff.
Now for my complaints. Here is why I don't think they got the point of the zapping system.
Oh, okay.
All right. So like the fact there was way too much Mr. X in this game. I love Mr. X, but like keep him in the B scenario. That's what made him special. It's like, oh shit, a whole nother boss? That's crazy. And also, if they would have split up everything, there wouldn't be so many weird story based time shenanigans that they're gonna have to like explain in a book later or something.
Right, and it is a very evident because we didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about the B scenario. There really isn't like I find that there isn't a whole lot of difference. There's like the first chunk of the RPD is different, and that's really it. Everything else is the same up until the very end where you fight a big tank and a DPS check boss. And
And also, there were items that you could like take and or leave for the B scenario character in the original one. Like there was the locker room, which I thought that's where it was gonna happen, and that's why I thought you only get one of the keys, but you get both the keys and you get all the items out of that locker room.
yeah,
But in the original, you only get one key and you can only take one of the items, and the other item is left for B scenario.
yep.
Like
It's
you either get the hip pouch or the machine gun, I think.
it's definitely something that you could tell they did like they wanted to do, but I'm sure it's like they also wanted to make these like well produced cutscenes, and that probably costed a lot of money. But then they were also like, oh, but people expect the zapping system to be in the game, so they kind of just I wouldn't say they copped out. I'd like to say they did what they could given the resources they had and what was reasonable to do on a AAA budget. Um, like with PlayStation, it's different because at least like minimal, no lip syncing needed. It's budget's less important. It's just like mostly like yeah, like reused assets and all that. Like it, I feel like it was
And
much.
also, in the original one, like you see different forms of Birkin in B scenario than in A scenario instead of all of them fighting all the forms all the
Yeah,
time.
it's weird that they just like were like okay, so Claire strictly fights all the Birkins, Leon fights all the Mister X's. Uh, Like, yeah, I'll be real with you. I'm with you, dude. Like, I'm doing the best I can, just like justifying that it's like as nerfed as it is. But yeah, if there is like one disappointing aspect of it, it really is like the zapping system. It feels like they could have compromised a little more. Like, it could have been worse. But yeah,
I
could
feel like like maybe they were going through the mind state of like if they only play the ace, we don't want them to feel like they only played part of the game. But that's the point of the zapping system.
yeah. I will say, like, I mean, the IGN review that got redacted, like, 75% of because this man's didn't actually play the B scenario like an idiot.
Hmm.
He was wrong in saying that it was exactly the same. Um, I think that is wrong. There are
Hmm.
enough things, just enough things, to
Yeah,
make it different and worth playing through. But you have to temper your expectations because it's not like the old zapping system, not even remotely as robust, or as like continuity, making sense continuity wise.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I still appreciate that they put it in at all. I think that's cool. I wasn't expecting it. I was kind of just expecting a linear experience, like not with like multiple playthroughs. But they did the thing that was good, and hey, it still remixed the game enough to make it feel relatively fresh. And I am with you there though. Like too much Mr. X, way too much. Like
Like, I love him. And like the perfect story. One more thing before I go into what I'm about to launch into. Like I like the cute little "do survive" notes that they leave for each other. Each scenario.
yeah, I do wish there were more moments where they did meet up in the RPD, but I guess that would also kill the continuity even harder with how the zapping system works in this game. So I guess the notes are the best thing they could do. Um, but regardless of all that, like one thing I also wanted to mention just about the Mr. X stuff early. The reason why I didn't particularly like it is because I didn't think like that scenario, like the first part of the RPD, was nearly as tightly developed around Mr. X as the second visit. Because the second visit's like, okay, this is like the perfect length, the perfect amount of things you have to do while avoiding this man. Like, it doesn't overstay its welcome. But here,
Complete with one of the puzzles basically being a safe room that he can't come in.
exactly. But here it's like they already increased the amount of more dangerous foes like lickers. Are you really gonna also throw this man in at like the first 5 minutes? Like, come on, it's a bit overkill. It's kind of a clusterfuck feeling. It almost feels like that part was a little slapdash. Just kind of
Mm-hmm.
like go into the game files, the map, like, hey, throw more enemies here. Throw Mr. X here
Cause
too.
suck it.
Fuck it. And he even still has the same fucking intro where he lifts the helicopter up later on too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on, really?
Hmm.
eh. The zapping system's definitely the weakest aspect of this game by far.
But the Mr. X, man, he had a. This was a big. That was like a big couple of months. Like everything was just a perfect storm of nonsense. Fucking X gonna give it to you. Fucking memes everywhere.
Yeah, the aftermath
DMX
movie.
got out of jail the day Resident Evil 2 came out.
Mm.
So he was running around just being DMX.
Him peeking on the side of the door, like
Yep.
it's like my favorite one. Uh, but yeah,
Yeah, the way he ducks in the door is like, oh hey.
yeah. But anyway, I think it's about time to wrap this up because I also like professional podcast moment here. I smell food. Food's a cooking. But yeah. So overall thoughts on Resident Evil 2, Leon?
I love it. Disappointed with the zapping system, but is still great.
Yeah. Do you think it's like? How do you think it stacks up with the original Resident Evil 2 as a man who played it so much like the original game?
After the hype died down, I can still go back and play the original Resident Evil 2 if I want. It's not like the absolute original killer, but anyone who hasn't played the don't really need to play the original.
Yeah, but I do think I will say like I don't think it completely invalidates the original. I think the original is still a unique experience, which is why I do
Oh
kind
no, it
of
doesn't. It's like fans can still go back to it, and people who can stomach old graphics can still go back to it.
yeah, because it's a game that shockingly aged pretty well,
Hmm.
like fine wine.
And both the old one and the new one have the once I know the layout, the game becomes faster, and I could just bust it out real fast, have myself a nice time thing going for it. So
Yeah. As for me, I don't think it tops Devil May Cry 5 in terms of like pure like game of the year material for me.
I heard. I keep hearing freaking yeah, yeah. Like no, I haven't heard any downer. on it, except for maybe like, oh, we're not getting Virgil, but that was it. That's the only downside I've heard from that game.
I think Devil May Cry 5 kind of edges it out a little for me, but Resident Evil 2 is a phenomenal game, and if people put it over that game, I really can't blame them, and I think it's still a right answer, because
I
Capcom
never
literally
thought that
knocked it.
I'd be playing a Resident Evil game on keyboard and mouse.
Yeah, and or just a game that really like finally squarely went back to its roots. Like Resident Evil 7, don't get me wrong, very scary game, but I think it also falls short on a lot of the classical elements more so than this one. I think with this one they finally got it right though. I think it's a perfect, it's a quintessential Resident Evil experience for anyone looking for a good survival horror game that's diverse, that's a breeze to play, it's a joy to play, and gives you some good spooks.
They
Um,
had their fun. They had their crazy action movie fun. Now it's time. It's back to business. Back to survival horror.
but y'all should still play. Y'all should still play Resident Evil 6. It's a very good game. Don't listen to what people tell you. It's really good. You know how it is.
It's a really dumb story, but it plays really tight.
I love that story for how dumb it is. But yeah, that should basically wrap things up here. Thank you for being on the podcast with me, Leon.
You are welcome.
Where can they follow you?
Uh, I have a Twitter that I barely look at, but I guess if traction happens, then I'll have to look at it more. Leon underscore is not crash.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the description. And as for me, as always, you could like, comment, and subscribe. Follow
I
the.
also have a Twitch.
Oh
Leon
yeah,
underscore Spencer.
Leon underscore Spencer on Twitch.
Yes, I may or may not stream.
Do thing, do content. As for me,
And if I do decide to make videos again, I will put it up to everyone to share it.
go watch his Baki the Summary video so he makes more.
I'd have to restart. Like, I'm having different thoughts on it. I might have to restart it. What I actually want to do is make another random thoughts. Maybe just watch some of episode 6,
Yeah.
and I made myself laugh.
But as for myself, the runner of the Critical Break podcast, you could like, comment, and subscribe to this very channel, where I'll be uploading podcasts and, I don't know, maybe other things someday, but right now mainly this podcast at a rate that I see fit. I'd like to try to do monthly, but either I procrastinate or things get in the way. In this case, procrastinate, admittedly. But yeah, you could expect content from me relatively semi-frequently. But if you want the most Bobby content for your Bobby buck, follow me over at Bobby Toasters on Twitter. That's where I shit post and give bad opinions. And or maybe give progress reports whether or not I'm like capturing footage for the next podcast YouTube version. So, and yeah, that's basically it. Also, subscribe to, since me and Leon are both here and are alumni, subscribe to Team Not Crash while you're at it. Our boy DJ's uploading things that we recorded like 3 or 4 years ago that he never got around to
And he's making new
uploading.
stuff. And he's been putting up new stuff.
And new stuff. So and they stream wrestling pretty frequently that I am sometimes on there for. And I think, yeah, just go sub up to Team Not Crash. They, the love is needed. Big love, big gamers.
Hot boys and gamer girls. Shout outs to Naked Jakey.
But yeah, the topic for the next podcast will either be Trails in the Sky or Shin Megami Tensei Soul Hackers. We will see. That'll give you something to look forward to. Either way, both will be covered at some point. Or maybe it will be something else entirely. Who knows? That's just how it be sometimes.
Ooh, I'm crazy.
Whoa! #1 podcast on YouTube.
Critical Break.